If I have the day correct, 1991, we said Shalom, we said goodbye to her as stood here. Again, we say Shalom to our final resting place, to Rita. I attempt to take some readings in Psalms from the Jewish tradition and frame of service. Always we read from the book of Isaiah. The prophet said, Kol makra v'makra, Kol basar chatzitz v'chol hastam kitzitz leben. Yevei chasher v'vatzitz kibur ha'mamna v'o. Yechin hatzer am, yevei satzer v'val, v'dvar Elohim, yakum le'olam. A voice says, cry out, and I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is like the grass. The grass withers, the flower fade, when the wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people of the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. Many of us today are not necessarily religious, but we feel a great sense of spirituality, a sense of the beauty of the mountains around us. The psalmist who wrote the 121st Psalm, when he wrote these words, was talking about the beauty of the Judean hills. If you've ever been to Israel, seen these Judean hills, it's just a magnificent ride as you make your way up into Jerusalem. And I often think about the beauty of living here in Colorado, living in the mountains, and come around and feel God's presence, no matter our tradition. And so we take a traditional psalm first in the Hebrew, and then we read it in the English. The psalmist said, S-I-N-I, Elechai me'ai yavo esri. Ezeni me'im Adonai osa shamayim haaretz. Ayatin lamut brit lecha. Ayatin shomrecha. Hine layanu lishan shomer Yisrael. Anad shmercha and silcha akim. Yemem hashemesh lo yakecha. Uruach belala. Na'ish morala. Shmertzeh. Go, Haletzaveh Olam. I lift up mine eyes to the hills. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. And where does my help come? My help comes from God, who has made this beautiful heavens and the earth that we are surrounded by. God does not let your foot be moved. God keeps you, will not slumber or sleep. God is your keeper. God is your shade on your right hand. The Lord shall shade your right hand. The sun shall not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. God will keep you from all evil. God will keep you going out. You're coming in from this time forth and forever. Who shall ascend the mountain of the Lord, and who shall stand in God's holy place? This woman that has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken God's name in vain, who has not sworn deceitfully. She that walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks truth in her heart, that has no slander upon her tongue, nor does evil to her fellow, nor takes out reproach against her neighbor. Happy is this woman that greatly fears God, that greatly delights in God's commandments. Unto the upright she shines as light in darkness, gracious and full of compassion, and full of righteousness. In a few moments, we'll share some thoughts about Rita, but I wanted to put into the context. And as I said to you, as I spoke on the phone, I try and find readings of artists and contemporary people. There is an Israeli poet by the name of Zelda. And often when I say it, the young people say, oh, the game Zelda. This is someone's name, and she is a modern artist, modern contemporary. And she wrote this poem. First, I'll read a few lines in Hebrew and then in English, because I think it really relates to Rita's life and the many names that she was known by and what she stood for, what she had done for. L'chol ish yesh shem shnatan lo Elohim, v'nat lo aviv imo. L'chol ish yesh shem shnatan lo k'muato v'ovet v'yidecho. Every one of us, each of us has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our mother and father, a name we are called by our children and our grandchildren. We have a name that we are called by our friends and by our neighbors, by those whom we love. We each have a name given by our stature and given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given to us by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and a name given by our love. We each have a name given by celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our planets. We each have a name given by the sea. And now we each have a name given by our
Well, hi, everybody. I think most of you know me, but I'm Andrew. Rita's the oldest son. And I've had a few things I want to say. First of all, thank you for being here today. And we all have different perspective about our relationships and memories with my mother. Some it's Rita, her friends, coworkers, neighbors, and family, or it's grandma Rita, to her grandkids, or it's Liz and myself. We each have different memories as to what made her special to us. And I was thinking how to write this brief tribute. I struggled with just giving my perspective because it isn't fair to you who had a different relationship with her. How you lived, where you lived, how you knew her, when you knew her, what your emotional connection was with her. So, and to be honest, as you can tell, it's kind of difficult for me to share this in public, but I'll do my best. Over the past 6 months or so, Mom spent time remembering her stories and sharing them with you. Excuse me, when we visited. And I know she shared some of the memories with some of you. And so this red book, it's not a Bible, it's not anything spiritual, it's not a Book of Mormon, you're okay. It's a book called Your Mother's Story, and Thomas and Liz gave this to her. And it was where she jotted down over the last year or so some of her stories and her memories. And I thought I'd share them with you today, a few of them in her perspective. We'll see how it. She was born to Anna Fine, was born in 1905 in Ukraine. And Demoris Fine was born in New York City in 1895. Mom was an only child. So there are prompts, and I'll read you the prompt and then I'll read you what you wrote. Who was your favorite family member that wasn't your mom or dad, and why were they your favorites? My cousins were Cheryl, Sandra, and David. We spent summers together in our early years. My older cousin Jean, who was an older sister when my mother passed away. How did you meet our father? I went to a fraternity party. I didn't meet him then. I met a friend, and he met a friend. We never really met each other. And my friend Anita asked me to come Saturday to a dance at the fraternity was sponsoring. She begged me to come. Didn't want to come, but I did. Dad didn't want to go, his friend insisted. So he introduced us on the dance floor. So we spent the evening being sarcastic. I guess that was appealing. Started dating for 6 months, and then Dad was going to be holiday. What was your all-time favorite holiday for us? Well, when children were young, it was New Year's Eve. Food and drink, always making at 10 p.m. For her growing up, it was her grandparents going to Passover, where she got to see all of her family. Did you have a favorite thing or toys and childhood? Why did you love it so much? I had a large girl doll. She was my sister. We played together. I named her Susan. Mine was Sarah, but it was Susan. Things we didn't know about. What was the naughtiest thing you did as a child? As a teenager, I worked as a counselor in a summer day camp. We had a chance to use the facilities on the weekends. My family came to pick me up. I had a cigarette and I ran from them worrying about my breath. I was a goody child, and she refers to herself as a goody throughout this little book. What was the scariest moment of your childhood? My mother getting ill and passing away. She was my anchor, my best friend. Who influenced your style and taste as a teenager? My friend Helen, older and a strong young woman in her temperament. My friend Rita, who traveled to high school on subway. My mom would take us wholesale dress companies. My father was dragged along with him to pay for clothes. What was your favorite fad of your generation? White box shoes. Before wearing them, you'd step all over them so they'd look warm. Nuts, right? That was your foot. That's right. Big long dresses with bobby socks, dirty white box studs. Shoes. Sorry. Were you good at sports or an instrument? She loved to play the piano, she loved to sing. She wasn't good at sports, but she loved to play ping pong. For those who growing up, we had that ping pong in the basement. She used to play it. Was having a family as rewarding as she thought it would be? Without a doubt, my husband and children were the delight of my life. Then came wonderful grandchildren. What did you learn about true friendship? There when you are needed, need them. Fun to be with, companionship. That's memory. How does the idea of becoming a grandparent make you feel? Well, since I have 8 grandkids, and of course Nicole, my wife, and all the other special people in their lives, I can say I was thrilled having them in my life. I only wish Dad had not only known Miles and hadn't died before he knew all the others. I guess I believe he knows all of them, and I can observe them. Oh, excuse me. Finally, a couple pieces of advice that I thought were worth sharing. What's the most important thing you learned in school that actually helped you in the real world? Listen to other people, but make up your own mind. Did you learn anything about yourself interesting on your life's journey? What was it? There will be ups and downs in life. Try to go with the flow, then move on with life. It doesn't help to complain. Just try to solve things and move on. Enjoy life. And then finally, how much sacrifice did you have to make in life? In what ways was the reward worth the sacrifice? I remember no sacrifice. Life takes you in many directions. I was lucky I had a good life and I appreciate what I had. Thank you, Frank, Rita, Grandma, Rita, Mom. We love you at this. Great.
Thanks, Andrew, for reading direct quotes from Mom, you know. In the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, the Jewish Bible, when we quote it, we often say the Hebrew phrase, "B'Shem Amro." So Moses said in the name of, or Aaron said in the name of. But to quote directly from Mom is one of those great things. And the art of diary keeping and penmanship and writing is not in the next generation in some way. And why I always ask family members to speak when I don't have great familiarity with something I know about Rita through your lens and what you share with me. These are people who you want to meet because she lived in this early stage and important stage of life. So, you know, to you and to Jen, Matthew, and Juliana, Elizabeth, and Thomas, and grandchildren, Miles, and Bradley, Marley, Aiden, Daniel, Jacob, Tally, Thomas, and even a great grandchild, Catch. And just think about that generation that would be continuing that book. I would be thinking about an early part of her mother because she was an only child and she lived in New York during the formative years. And if you can imagine what this period of time was like in New York, New York was a vibrant city, it was a melting pot of many cultures. You know, you had the Irish moving in, you had the Jewish communities moving in, you had the Polish, you had every community moving in. But there was a unique history that we could spend hours talking about. And knowing Rita's love for Broadway, I would be remiss in doing that because many of the people who wrote the Broadway plays and the music, like Irving Berlin, you know, were just known that Broadway was an opportunity both to assimilate into American life and at the same time see America from a different lens. And the notion of music was just so important. It was a gathering for many people. Broadway theater was the church and synagogue for many Americans who were attempting to integrate it. And so knowing her love for this, I would really be remiss this morning as we say shalom to her and lay her to eternal rest if I didn't frame my eulogy with this lifelong passion of hers. If I had musical talent, which I don't, I sing in the key of K, and everybody tells me not to sing, I would sing to you the words from the 1996 song, Seasons of Love, the famous song from the musical Rent. Most of you familiar with it? If you don't, you go back out to your car, Google Rent or your Xfinity, but from, it is the most powerful song. And most of us are not aware, except the true Broadway people that the composer Jonathan Larson died unexpectedly the night before the opening of the previews of Rent. And that night, the cast opened the Broadway show by singing Seasons of Love instead of it in the opening of the second act. So just a little piece of that. And so part of life, like for Mom, you could have the best laid plans in some ways and things always move. And being a spouse of someone who served our country, going from community to community, you always have to do a new set design. You always have to find new community. And the audience in some ways, your neighbors are always different. And she raised you. And you lived in community with many different kinds of people. So let me just take a moment, and I will not sing it for you, and share with you some of the lyrics. Who's going to say something? Anybody can sing it. Like them over here. I thought about bringing out a little U.S. Army speakerphone. I was going to play, but I figured I didn't want to get too kitschy. So the lyrics are the following: 525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights and cups of coffee, in inches and miles and laughter, in strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in a life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measure the love, seasons of love, seasons of love. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to play, 525,600 minutes. How can you measure the life of a woman or a man? In truth that she's learned, or in times that she cried, in bridges she burned, or the way that she died, it is time now to sing out. Although it's not the end, to celebrate. Remember a year in the life of a friend. Remember the love, remember the love, remember the love. Measuring the seasons of love, seasons of love. There are literally 5,225, 600 minutes in a year. So the equation is 365 days times 24 hours in a day times 60 minutes gives us this 5,225, 600 minutes in a year. The song lyrics ask, what is the proper way to quantify the life of a human life? And it concludes in the chorus, measure in life. And so when I talk with each of you, you shared with me that Mom loved life. She loved your dad of blessed memory. She loved the adventure of Broadway theater, and to whatever degree you love going from base to base, she loved the explorations, because for some that is a difficult hardship, for her was really who she was. I asked that question of all the men and women who were laid to their eternal lives here at Fort Logan and so many other places. What is it we measure with love? So I ask you this question. How did your beloved Rita, mother, friend, mother-in-law, grandmother, great-grandmother, measure her love? And I think it was by showing you how to live life, how to make the most out of each day. Even in her illness and her declining years, I heard from you that she loved life and family was her number one priority. And that's truly in this book. What could you do for her? And so now I turn to you, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. How do you measure your love for her? What is it that you take when we leave for a moment? What will you do? What aspirations did she have that she never quite fulfilled? What dreams did she have for you that you have fulfilled? That you can turn and say, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you for all you've done, and friends. Life wasn't always easy for her. She did some part kind of work, learning. I think she loved the retail, just for me. I think she liked to schmooze with the customers. She could sell ice to Eskimos, I think was the sense of it. But the question is, how do you measure love? And I think in part, measuring love is cherishing these words, that this book should be replicated in some ways and shared in the world, because there is a next generation sitting here. Another generation that's closer to our final days. And so how do we measure love? We measure love by forgiveness and working. We let sometimes other people in our family, sometimes brothers and sisters and grandchildren, know that we love them, even with all the craziness of life. And we measure love by telling people we love them and made a difference. That you may not have realized what you did or what you said made a difference in my life. And so, as we say shalom to Rita, Roth, born to Anna and Morris Fine, we hope that these moments, this time, will always be held sacred. And so, I choose this reading from Rabbi Chaim Stern. He said, "It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be and to lose. A thing for fools, a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, but death has touched." Birth is a beginning and death is a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to recklessness, and ignorance to knowing. From discretion onward, and from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness and back from prayer to health again. From loneliness to love and joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding. From defeat to defeat until looking back ahead. We see that victory lies in some high place along the way, and having made the journey, the Savior privilege to life everlasting. I ask you to join with me in the words from the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me in the still waters. God restores my soul. God leads me in the paths for the sake of his name, even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies, anointing my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord. I ask you to rise from the holy hands. Oh, Mother, show me. In Kiroshin, you say to me, by its Lord, its Lord, and I, Tanduach, Shalom, Amis, Kava, God full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest and deliverance for your presence. To our beloved Rita who has entered eternity, ask for mercy. Let this loving soul for her family, her friends, and extended things that she enjoyed in life. Let her find refuge wherever the shadowy wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is her inheritance. May she rest in shalom. May she rest in peace. The rising of the sun, it's going down, remember Rita. The opening of the buds, the rebirth of spring, remember her. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of the summer, remember Rita. At the beginning of the year when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and need of strength, we remember Rita. Lost and sick at heart, we remember her. With joy we crave to share, we remember her. We have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember her. When we listen to good Broadway shows and maybe not so good Broadway shows or music, we remember her. because she's instilled with us the ability to listen, to hear, and to enjoy life. As long as we live, she too will live, and she is now part of us as we remember. Yidgaral v'yidgaral Shnei Rabal. Yamal Devrach Yutev El Mithma Yutev V'Chaychon V'Chayim V'Chayim Yisrael. V'Lav Yizman Karev and Amen. Yehei Shnei Rabal Mevarach Yamam Amerach. Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitpar Yitmaman Yitmaseh. Yitarar V'Taleh V'Talal Shmei V'Shad V'Ritu. Ve'elom V'Chaber Fatah V'Shirata. Tushma Fatah V'Nef Fatah. Yehei Shnei Rabal Mitzvah. V'chayim aleinu v'ya'akol Yisrael v'y'movim. Oseh shalom v'n'omal v'ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'ya'akol Yisrael v'y'movim. And I close off with this reading. At this moment which bears the memory of Rita, we join in loving remembrance. Let us join our hands as we remember this sacred soul. The link has been broken, the chain which has bound us together. Yet strong bonds of home and love hold us each to another. We give them blessings for thankfulness of her life, of companionship and memory. The stories that she told and the stories that she wrote. We are grateful for the time that she had with her beloved, sharing those times with Bernie and their love together in protecting our great nation. We are grateful for strength that sustains us. Though our sorrow lingers, we have learned that love is stronger than death. Though soon Rita will be on our sight, we will not despair, for we sense in our hearts as living presence. Zikron ala bracha. May memory always be a blessing. Thank you for being with us. We'll follow directions. May you listen to Broadway too. It's just, and if you don't know that song from Rent, you got it. Anyone got that song? Got it. Yes? To mom sing it?
We'll see.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, ask you to return to your cars. Every vehicle is going to come and take Rita to her final resting place. Then we'll be let out when they're ready for us, and we'll miss the lowering. Is that okay? Thank you.
I'm gonna remember you. I think I followed. It's okay. Really, she wanted to. She doesn't talk to her a lot. Yeah, I'm really glad. I wish I could. She always kept her shoe. And likewise, I just tell you. Yeah. It was always new stuff. Yeah, yeah. I couldn't even describe it.
Well, it was funny because I did it with two months ago. I like, you know, I'm thinking yeah, like raised right, you know, or like an aunt.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I never so every time I look at a picture of it. Yeah.
It's